Where was your unit when you got back with them? Where were they located at?
They were in Wiesbaden.
Wiesbaden.
Yeah. And it was a beautiful, they call it Kaserne. There were 5 buildings, and it was the first time that our whole organization was together. Company headquarters, Company A, Company B, and Company C. First time.
First time since England. I mean, Scotland.
Yeah. And it was really strange because I'm a little out of sequence here, and I'm trying to remember why we went to Germany, and then we had to pull out of Germany in order to get into the Battle of Bulge. I can't remember. I haven't been able to put it in sequence. The part that I just told you about now, about going to the depot there, that came afterwards, because I left when we got through with that concern in Wiesbaden. We went to they broke us up, and we were all put into separate units. And because I was single, had no points, the only extra points I had was the Bronze Star. That was worth 5 points. You had to have 85 points. I had no wife, no children, no points, So I said, this is going to be a long siege. So most of the guys left before me, and I got put into different units until they, because what they were doing was boiling it down, and so that everybody would get to go home, but they had to go home according to the points that they had, So, I'm kind of lost there.
Were they going home to visit, or were they going home?
No, they were going home. The truth is that they held us for quite a while because it looked like we might be going to Japan. But because the war ended in Japan, I was in that hospital the day Franklin Roosevelt died. I used to be able to tell you the date and everything, and I guess I'm starting to forget things. I'm getting old, no question about it. Because I'm trying to put the best part, of course, is when I went to the Battle of the Bulge. Mm-hmm. This was my hour to shine, and here I am. I can't put it in a proper order. But I'm trying to remember from where. Wait a minute. We have the history over there. I'll show it to you after. We actually published a book with all the history of the company, and it shows where we were detached from the rest of the organization. So that will straighten me out. Okay. So you may have to splice it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, because
was that your next pretty much major event? Was the Battle of the Bulge?
Of course.
Was that just yours? Was it just Alpha Company, or was it with your whole battalion?
It wasn't even Alpha Company. It was just 2 guns, because 2 guns got destroyed before they had a chance. Oh. I lost 7 friends before they even had a chance to get out of the vehicle, and when we went back. Well, anyway, let me tell you from the start. We were in a beautiful chateau in Belgium. The war was winding down. Everybody knew we were going to go home. And it was December. We had been in that chateau for maybe 2 or 3 months. And it was beautiful. There was no other house in the area, and this baron or whatever he was, not only did he own this beautiful, beautiful chateau, but he owned everything around it. So there were no homes, no nothing. The people had left. He had left, and he had taken all his furniture with him. But there was a great big fireplace in there. And so once we got started, we used to light the fireplace, and we could keep the place fairly warm. It was cold. It was really cold out, you know. We could stay fairly warm. And we were a hell of a lot luckier than most other guys. They were still fighting, you know. And here we are. We've got a place, a fairly warm place, and every day we'd take trips outside, and we'd walk and see the different areas, and there would be very large animals, and we'd watch them. And the only trouble was we had to eat rations, K rations, C rations. Then comes December, and the rumor is that we're going home. So I said, well, I'm sure we're not going to go home tomorrow, you know. So what do you say we start getting ready and have a Christmas tree? You know, it's nice. So we went out in the woods, and we saw a beautiful Christmas tree, and we chopped it down, and we brought it back. We made a stand for it. We put it up. Now, how are we going to trim it? We don't have a Christmas trim. So every time the guys ate a can of beans, pork and beans, we would take the can. It was gold, and we put a hole in the bottom of it, put a string through it. That was one of the balls, you know. And then we started changing the colors, and we found ways to make a Christmas tree. We were sure that we were going to be here for Christmas. So I think it was the 14th. On the 14th, we heard a rumor that there was the Germans had broken through. And we figured, well, we're out of it. I mean, we're so far. None of us even knew where we were. I don't know if I knew the name of the village. But we didn't worry about that because we were going to go home. We were sure we were going home. Then on the morning of the 16th, they wake us up. And they tell us, you got to get out to your vehicles. You got to get your guns all polished up. You got to make sure they're in working order. You got to get all your gear, and it's got to be on the half track. And we have to be ready to move in 3 hours. And so everybody ate some beans in a hurry, and off we go to the half tracks. Put the gun up. Now we're all ready. All we need is the word that says you're going to go. There's only 4 guns. 4 of us were there. Just my company A. So Sergeant Wilson, ready to march? Yeah, we're ready to march. Let's go. And we started. And we traveled. And we traveled. Well, I told the guys, I said, it's very, very cold. And you get very cramped. We had all kinds of boxes of food. We had probably 40 shells, each in boxes all around. We had gasoline. I mean, we must have had 70, 80 gallons of gasoline. This is all stuff that, you know, flammable. But this is the way we traveled. And we traveled for many hours, all that day. And then that night, I remember they stopped us on a road, and we look up in the sky, and there's nothing but tracer bullets. It looked so pretty, you know, tracer bullets in the entire sky was just tracer bullets, but it was so cold. So I said to the guy, look, there's a non-com meeting, so you guys get your blankets, put them over you, and stay under. Use your own body for heat, you know, and you'll be all right. Well, they all fell asleep. They were tired of looking at the bullets because they were quite a bit away from us. Went to the meeting, and they said, we don't know yet where we're going. We have no idea where we're going. This thing has developed so fast that they don't even know where the enemy is. They know they're there, but they don't know where they are exactly. And the enemy has been making some rapid recovery. They picked up a lot of land, you know. So myself, Sergeant Lowe had gone to a bigger meeting than we had, and then there was the 4 sergeants, and 2 corporals, and we were standing on this corner in the dark, pitch black, and wondering where the heck are we going. And this talk got around to, Jesus, you know, if the rumors are true, this is like a suicide mission for us. They've just taken a bunch of guys and put them out there because we had no troops there, and we happened to be close by. So, you know, we're starting to think a little bit, you know. And Sergeant Lowe comes back and he says, "I'm sorry, man, I got some bad news for you, but there aren't going to be very many soldiers where we're going, and we're supposed to hold these guys for 6 hours." And he said, "It looks impossible. It actually looks impossible." So he says, "But that's the orders." So now we stay there about 2 more hours, and then we start again. Now we travel the whole day of the 17th. And that night, we're about where we're supposed to be. And they bring us to, well, it was outside of Stabilo. And Stabilo was a little bit of a village. From what I found out later, there were about 1,700 people in this village.
What country?
Stabilo.
Stabilo.
Belgium. Yeah. There were there were about 1,700 people. And in the First World War, almost exactly the same thing happened. The whole town got beat up bad, really bad. And these people still remember the Americans from way back. And they had all kinds of civilian soldiers, you know. I forgot what they called them. Anyway, when we get there, as we're entering, here's where luck is everything. Your life is full of luck. You realize it more and more when you're seeing something like this. Now, it's a column, right? The first Jeep is Lieutenant Doherty with his driver and a machine gunner. The second Jeep is Sergeant Lowe, who was your company sergeant. And he also has a driver and a machine gunner. And then comes Sergeant Armstrong with his full crew, and then he's carrying a gun behind him, right? And his second gun is Sergeant Whaley. Now, don't forget, these 10 men on each of these, including the sergeant, the corporal, and the driver. There's 10 men. So there's 7 guys that actually unhook the gun and get it ready to fire. So, and then after that, that's the first section. Now, the second section is me with my crew, and the next gun is Sergeant Hauser with his crew. Now, I don't know why or how Lieutenant Doherty figured that he would take Sergeant Armstrong and Sergeant Whaley away, and he would put them in front. I mean, if it were me, I would have put my gun on the street, and I would have put my second gun over and back, and then I would have taken the other 2 guns, and I would gun forward. He did it just the opposite. He stopped Sergeant Armstrong and Sergeant Whaley and said, "You wait here a minute." And he says to Hauser, "You're on the street facing that bridge up there. And Lou, you're in back of him. Now you 2 guys, anything that comes over that ridge, is what you fire at. And it's up to you when you fire and so forth. Now he takes Sergeant Armstrong and Sergeant Whaley and he brings them down. Well, they got a short way down and somebody starts firing at them. It was a huge tank. Starts firing at them. They started trying to get away, and by the time they had the only thing they were near a wall, a house, and in order to get away from the firing of the gun, they started towards the house, but they never made it. The gun, that big gun, just once it hit, we actually saw the smoke and the fire with all those shells and all that gasoline to fire it. You have no idea what it was like. I do, because 3 weeks later they brought us back because we had done such a wonderful job. They brought us back to take pictures of the tanks that we knocked out and everything. In the meantime, that one tank had gotten around earlier. There were nobody on the line. There were only 200 people taking a line that should have had maybe 6,000 or 8,000 people. And there were only 200 people there, and they all got walloped, you know. So when we hadn't started firing yet because we didn't see any tanks, we knew they were coming down. It was a hill. And then all of a sudden, at about 6 o'clock in the morning, I guess it was, we started hearing the clanking of tanks. And it was so bitter cold. And the ground was like glass. And the clanking, you all of a sudden you started seeing tanks, and they would slide from side to side. You'll see it it's all in that disc. And they would go from side to side. You know, they had no control. Well, that's when myself and Hauser, we started firing. Now, we were well trained. I told you, we had more training than anybody I know. And thank God, even though I had a rogue crew, they were fantastic. And we knew that Hauser was going to have a beat on the first tank, and I was going to have a beat on the last tank. And that's the way it was. The minute we saw them, we couldn't see them, so what we had to do was start firing and tear all the houses down. We tore all the houses down and exposed the tanks in back of them. And then he went after the first one, I went after the last one. If we could get those two, now, we know that our weapons are now no match for those tanks. Those tanks were unbelievable. The size of them and the armor in them. So you either have to hit them in the turret or you have to hit them in the tracks. So that's what we did. Luckily, we started firing rapidly, very rapidly. Once we knew, I gave the order for 900 yards. To this day, I say this in the thing exactly like I'm saying it now. I don't know where I got, it was just from training. That's all it was. From training, you could judge 900 yards pretty well. And I gave that order. We hit him on the first shot. He hit the first one, I hit the last one. But we didn't hit him hard enough. And now there's two in between. You got to remember that. And they're getting ready to fire. So we're just firing like crazy after that. We're just aiming for those tracks, especially, And once we see that gun coming around like that, those 88s had a snout from here to that wall out there. And when they moved, you saw them, and we just kept on firing. And there were, and in all this, I saw something funny. something that kind of loosened me up, because it's pretty tense, believe me when I tell you. But I saw something that was so funny that it loosened me up really good. And that was that we had a pair of two guys who were buddies. They were like that. One was 6'4", and the other guy should not have been in the service. He was only 4'11". He should not have been in the service. And they, believe it or not, were the guys that had volunteered to bring the ammunition down to us, because it didn't take very long for us to dispense of all the stuff that we had on the vehicle. So these guys had to be fast, and they had to bring these. Now those things were about probably 48 inches long, and here's a little sergeant, a little Shorty Soares, down here where he's holding the thing. And in back is Oleskovich, 6'5". So he's got to bend down. So here they are running over to us with the thing. It was so comical. In spite of everything, I just started to laugh and I said to the guys in the middle of all this, I remember saying to the guys, look at this. And these guys came, they would leave it and run back, get another one. It really loosened us up really good. And then we started the fire. After that, I don't really remember a heck of a lot. All I remember really is that we were just firing like crazy people. We had the range, and we just kept hitting and hitting and hitting. Like I say, I can't honestly say I remember hitting him, or the first one I think I remember, but I don't remember anything after that. It was just enthusiasm too, because you're finally getting to do something that you trained like heck to do, and you never got to do it. So we got all four of those tanks up there. In the meantime, the guy that had come earlier, he had come down one of those rickety little streets. Now, a Tiger Royal is bigger than the street in Europe. And so every place he went, he would knock down buildings and so forth, just moving normally. He would knock down part of a house. Well, when he got to the end of that street that he was actually a broadside of us. We're firing this way. He's up here. And so he wants to knock us out. And boy, he's got a good chance of doing it. So, here's the way we figure it happened. He could not fire from the position that he was in. So he tried to back up so that he could get a better area of fire. And when he backed up, he knocked the house down on top of him. It was probably the only 3-story house in the whole village. And he knocked that, and he backed right into it, and enough so that it came down on him. And by the time he got ready to fire, he couldn't put the muzzle down low enough, and the first one hit Sergeant Doherty's Jeep, and as God is my judge, it picked it up. Sergeant Doherty and his driver had just gotten out 2 minutes before, and that shot picked up that Jeep and actually went into the air and threw it against the building. And I didn't see it. This I'm told. Before
we start, go ahead.
What we did, we knocked the 4 tanks out anyway. And
so the one that had backed into the building.
The one that backed into the building, he fired, hit the lieutenant's Jeep, it went up in the air, and now he's got a beat on me. See? And he's going to get me, there's no question about it. Except when he goes to lower the gun, and I'll tell you after why we know this, as he goes to lower the gun, he couldn't get it down. So he fires about 3 feet over our heads. In that, what people can accomplish when they think they're going to die, you will not believe. Now, my gun dug itself, the trails dug it themselves into the ground 2/3 of the way. That means that I should have left the gun right there. Should have put a thermite grenade in it and let it go. Instead, we tried to get it out. And super strength. We got it out. We got it out. We coupled it and we got out of there before the guy had a chance. He did fire another one, but it went over our heads. And we got on the road. If you want to see some guys going about 90 miles an hour in a 45-mile vehicle, that thing wouldn't go 45 miles an hour. We felt like we were running, you know, and as luck would have it, we spotted one of the guys that had been in one of the tanks the half tracks that went ahead of us. They had spent almost a whole night in the basement of a house with German soldiers upstairs. It was a potato cellar, and they got themselves underneath the potatoes. As soon as it got light, they jumped out the window. The guys were sleeping upstairs. They came out the window. They came down into the water, swam across the river, and I picked them up as I was leaving. Believe it or not, 2 guys. But Jack Armstrong and his crew were completely demolished. Now they wanted to give us publicity on it. So Stars and Stripes sent a cameraman over. This is 2 weeks later. And the tanks were still there, where there were 1 or 2 of them, not all of them. 1 or 2 of the tanks were still on the road, and there were the dead bodies still on the ground. It was cold, I mean freezing. And the bodies, there were cows and animals they're all around, and they were all swollen and everything, you know. And night before last, I got a call that one of the guys I picked up, his name was Hammonds, Bob Hammonds, and I kept a friendship up with him all these years. And I would go down to North Carolina and stay with him. After his wife died, I went down several times. Well, Bob died 2 nights ago. His second wife called me. She's a wonderful gal. And Bob and I took a picture. I don't know where it is now, but it's in there someplace. We took a picture on one of the tanks. And Bob is a cut-up, and he was dancing on the tanks. Well, he was in the mood for having a lot of fun. So he jumps off the tanks, and he said, "Hey, Lou, watch this." He picks up the German guy's leg. You know, he wanted to be funny. And he picks up the German guy's leg, and the thing was so icy cold, it just broke in his hand. And he wound up with the guy's leg like this. You never saw anybody get so sick so fast in your whole life. Poor guy. Never forgot it. Never forgot it. But there's pictures in some place, a lot of pictures. I don't know where they are. I got one picture. And I don't know where it is either.
So after this battle, where did you guys?
Well, after this battle, my steering gear on not mine, but our steering gear, got damaged. And as we're running away, we realized we can't make a left turn, and we're going pretty fast too. I'm not kidding you. Now, I believe I was supposed to go to Liège, but I had to make a left turn to go to Liège. So I said do you think you could steer it at all? He said, "I'm getting some play on the right." So I said, "Well, slam your brakes on and hit it to the right. As long as we can't go left, we'll worry about where we're going afterward." Well, we wound up in Bastogne. And then I was there for only a little while. And then the war wasn't over yet. But they sent me to well, it was the German area of Belgium, you know, part of the area that had been given to part of Germany that had been given to the Belgians after World War One. So we had set up our guns there, and we were there for about, I don't know, several weeks, and then we heard that the war was going to be over. Then we knew the war was going to be over, and that was it. Next thing I know, we're in Wiesbaden, Germany, you know, and that's where we fixed up these buildings that they had. You remember when the Iranians had the American prisoners?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, when they finally got them out, they needed a hospital real close. And we had gotten thrown out of our building because the Air Corps wanted to make a hospital out of it. And so they made a beautiful, beautiful hospital out of it. And that's where the Iranians went, right in the beds where we stayed, you know, we were there about 6 months, I guess. It was beautiful, right on top of the mountain, looking into the Rhine River, you know. And when I went back 4 years ago, I went back. We did the whole thing. And it's unbelievable. There was nothing down at the Rhine River. You want to see it now. We went swimming down there. There was just a river. And there was a castle in the middle of the river. And that's all that was down there. Now there's all kinds of business, paved roads, and it's up on, but that concern is right up on top of the hill. And you get straight down to the water. Beautiful. I always said I was going to go back, and I went in a wheelchair, but I went back.
So when did you actually leave country and head back to the States?
I got home on December 14th. Is that what it said?
December 12th was the date you got out of service.
Yeah, well, it took a few days to get. Yeah, that's about right.
So you pretty much spent most of your years in service in Germany, or not in Germany, but in Europe.
No, actually, I spent a lot of time here before I got there. But then when we got there, we were there about maybe a year and a few months. Yeah.
Did you have contact with family back home while you were there?
Oh yeah, every day.
Through letters. And
my mother would write every day. Yeah, I would.
So, and you told me about one relationship that you kept with a friend from the service.
I actually went to see several years after. C Company had a guy, and they had a little reunion. Mm-hmm. So about 40 years ago, they invited me to their reunion, and it was no reunion. I mean, they just met, and I said, "What the heck kind of a reunion is this?" I said to this guy, "Do you mind if I take over?" I said, "I'd like to have a real reunion with the whole organization, you know." I didn't know what I was getting into. Oh, my God. Because all you have is the addresses of where they used to live. They all got married and lived like our people. They all went to the suburbs. Yeah. You know, I spent hours and days in libraries, but I had to wait until I had a retarded boy, a mentally challenged boy, and I mean mentally challenged. He had no mentality at all. He was beautiful. I mean, you would see the pictures. He's a gorgeous child. They just forgot to put a brain in his head, and he was absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, my wife and I had different ideas. You know, I like to be out. I like to go places. I like to do things. She was a homebody. You know, so I made it my business to start looking up addresses. And I used to go to libraries, and I used to get, libraries was the place where you found all the telephone books. Now remember, we had men from 20 states in our organization. We had 401 from the north and 400 from the south, and a half a dozen or so Wyoming, Wisconsin, California. Now, how do you find these guys? You got to have a good map, good maps. You have to have really good maps. If you're going to look up Tennessee, for instance, which many of them were, and you have to make circles, and then you have to, you know, I don't know where I got this knowledge because I never went to school, and I for 35 years I ran that. Well, up to 5 years ago, it would be, now it's almost 45 years. Well, I ran the reunions, and I got to know, well, because I used to play golf, and I'd love to go to Myrtle Beach, so I got to know everybody in Myrtle Beach, and I would just call up and say, okay, 27 rooms and so forth, you know, this is what I want. And they would do it for me, because I used to bring 2 groups down for golf every year, so I was a money machine for them, you know. And they would do almost anything I asked for. So I made it, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And we had reunions till about 5 years ago. And then, now, last night, when we got that other medal that they were giving us, we found out that there are only 100,000 of us left out of 16 million. Can you imagine that? And it was 100,000 yesterday, because in the last 3 days, at least 10 guys died here in New Haven.
Wow.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Time's going by. I mean, it's
I can't believe it.
Well, tell me, I just have one other question for you. How do you think your service in the Army affected your life?
Oh, God.
Do you think it had a great impact? Or?
I was a very naive guy. Very naive. I came out of a family that we were close, you know. We were small. I had a brother and a sister, but we were very small. I went into something. I learned so much. In the first 5 days I was there, I learned all kinds of things. I'll never forget putting on the uniform and breaking out in a case of hives like you never saw in your life. They were this big, and nobody cared. I'd go around saying to the guy, I didn't know these guys, of course. You know, I may have known 1 or 2 of them, but these were strangers. And I'd tell them, look at this. And, yeah, it looks nasty. And they'd walk away. And I'm trying to find out what to do. And so in walks this captain. I had never seen him before. And he walks in. And I walk up to him. I said, sir, look what's happening to me. He says, stand at attention. I said, at attention, I can't. I said, I'm itching all over the place. I told you to stand at attention. I had to stand at attention. Now salute me properly. I found out this guy was a geologist from Russia. He had spent most of his life as a geologist hunting gold and oil for the Russians in Russia. Came back because he had education, and then the war broke out. He became a captain. He was about as much a captain as I was. He just had more knowledge. We didn't have anybody that was in the service at the time. So after I told him, he said, well, it's kind of late. I don't know if they're there, but you wanted to go down to the first aid. I said, I got to do something. I said, what? I had never had hives before in my life. But they were big, and they were ugly. And when I got to the thing, happened to be a doctor there, and he said, you've got hives, you're allergic to the wool. He said, that's going to get you out of the Army. I said, I don't want to get out of the Army, I'm trying to get in. And so he said, okay, I'll give you a shot. Give you a shot. The next morning I had no more hives. And he was a drunk. That was another story. He was a drunk. He was he was a wonderful doctor. Oh, he could look at you, know which one's wrong with you. But they had to drum him out because he was drunk all the time.
Well, Lou, I want to thank you for your service.
Okay, I get wound up. I don't stop.
And I want to thank. I know. I wish you had. And I want to thank you for allowing us to interview you today.
Yeah,